Let's just jump right into it. NASA put a man on the moon in 1969. They built the International Space Station with 14 partner countries. They've sent rovers to Mars and deployed the Hubble telescope to literally look into the very origins of our universe. It is an incredible, unmatched legacy of human achievement. And the people working there? Well, they know exactly how good they are.
Seriously, if you walked through the Johnson Space Center parking lot back in the 2000s, you would literally see bumper stickers that read, "Just what part of GMXM/R equals MXVS²/2 don't you understand? It's only rocket science." I mean, the scientists in NASA's Space Life Sciences Directorate truly believe their own elite problem-solving mythology, and frankly, it was highly justified. These are not people who struggle to solve hard problems.
So that brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. Why did this exact team, NASA's Space Life Sciences Group, suddenly decide they needed outside help? Why did they go to public crowdsourcing platforms and basically ask total strangers around the world to solve problems that their own world-class scientists had been stuck on for decades? Well, I'll tell you right now, it wasn't because they had given up. Actually, it was because they'd stumbled onto one of the most powerful and honestly most counterintuitive insights in modern innovation strategy, which is, why do the people closest to a problem sometimes become the very last ones who can solve it? To understand how NASA learned this the hard way, we really have to look at a massive existential crisis that hit the organization.
Okay, picture this. It's 2005, and NASA's Space Life Sciences Directorate just got its R&D budget slashed by a staggering 45%. They went from $330 million down to $175 million, just like that. 13 full-time positions gone. About 80 contract roles eliminated overnight. The director, Jeff Davis, and his senior strategist, Elizabeth Richard, suddenly found themselves standing on a burning platform. And the stakes, they could not have been higher. This was the team responsible for keeping astronauts alive in space. I mean, how do you prevent bone density loss in zero gravity? Or predict solar radiation events that could literally kill a crew in deep space? These weren't just abstract academic questions. As one scientist framed their terrifying mandate, you make a mistake here, people die. Davis and Richard had an impossible task. Keep driving cutting-edge innovation for human survival, but do it with half the resources. So the radical tool they turned to is something called open innovation. As defined by scholar Henry Chesbrough, this is a model where the firm is not the sole source of new ideas. Instead, you develop solutions through active collaboration with people outside your own walls. This was a massive departure from the dominant closed innovation model of the 20th century. You know, where famous institutions like Bell Labs, IBM Research, or Xerox PARC hired the best people, built the best labs, and solved their own problems tightly behind closed doors.
Now, don't get me wrong, closed innovation works exceptionally well for a lot of things. But it has a structural weakness. It assumes the people inside your organization are the best possible minds for every single challenge you face. But when a problem sits at the intersection of multiple fields, the answer might actually live in a domain your internal experts don't even think to look in. It's not because they aren't brilliant, it's because deep specialization in one direction literally creates genuine blind spots in others.
So Davis and Richard decided to run some pilots through 3 external platforms. They used Innocentive, which tapped into 300,000 global problem solvers with cash prizes. They used Yet2.com, basically a matchmaker connecting organizations that have problems with those that have the capabilities to solve them. And they used Topcoder, a network of 300,000 developers focused on coding challenges. They took their toughest challenges, posted them publicly with short time frames, and offered prize money to whoever could solve them.
The response? It was staggering. Over 2,800 solvers from more than 80 countries answered NASA's call. Think about that for a second. This unlocked a massive, global reservoir of external brainpower, completely shattering the geographic and intellectual boundaries of that single NASA facility in Houston. And the results were absolutely spectacular. Take the solar flare prediction challenge, for example. For decades, internal NASA and academic efforts had hit a hard limit. They could only predict a deadly solar flare about 1 to 2 hours in advance. But through open innovation, an external solver created an algorithm that could predict an event 8 hours in advance, and it did so with 85% accuracy and a 3 sigma confidence interval. It absolutely shattered decades of internal limitations. But here is the crazy twist that makes this so fascinating. Who do you think actually solved this highly complex, life-saving predictive algorithm? It wasn't some decorated astrophysicist from an Ivy League university. Nope. The winning solver was a semi-retired radio frequency engineer living in New Hampshire, a guy NASA literally never would have found or probably even interviewed through their traditional hiring channels.
And this wasn't just a one-off fluke either. For the Top Coder Medical Kit Challenge, the goal was to optimize an algorithm for a space travel medical kit. The timeline? Just 10 days. In that incredibly short window, 480 individuals submitted over 2,800 solutions. They generated a highly useful algorithm that was immediately incorporated into NASA's integrated medical model. The pilot was just a resounding, undeniable success.
But before we talk about what happened next, we really need to pause and empathize with the NASA scientists for a minute. These people didn't choose NASA for the money. Many of them could have earned way more in the private sector. They chose NASA, as one researcher pointed out, for the opportunity to contribute to something nobody's ever done before. Their entire professional identity was built around being the absolute best. When Apollo 13 nearly ended in disaster, it was teams exactly like this who improvised under impossible pressure to bring the crew home. That mythology lived inside the organization every single day.
So in January 2011, Davis and Richard hosted a workshop to present these spectacular pilot results. They fully expected to be hailed as heroes. I mean, they had essentially saved the department's research capabilities. But when Davis introduced open innovation, he was basically asking these scientists to do something that cut directly against their rigid scientific training. The traditional method demands you take in information, analyze it, and conclude internally. Open innovation just says, hey, ask outsiders for help.
While the reaction was definitely not applause, it was stunningly negative. Elizabeth Richard described the emotional reaction of the staff perfectly, saying it was like a lead balloon crashing with a deep thud. The very people who stood to benefit the most from these solutions firmly and resoundingly rejected the results.
You have to look at how deeply threatened these NASA scientists were by this external success. One researcher complained that the history of the scientific method goes against open innovation, protesting that reaching out to other people to solve a problem is, quote, like cheating. They didn't view collaboration as a powerful tool. They viewed it as a direct violation of their professional identity and their expertise.
The absolutely crucial point here is this. The resistance wasn't about the data. The data was flawless. It was about ego and culture. As another scientist protested, why do we need to expand our external partnerships to innovate? We already solve difficult science problems. We are NASA. The culture violently rejected a life-saving innovation model simply because it challenged their deeply held belief that if a problem could be solved, they were the only ones who could solve it.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating and perhaps a bit uncomfortable thought to end on. Yes, NASA is an extreme example of elite expertise, but honestly, this happens everywhere. When you look at the blind spots in your own team or your own business, you really have to ask yourself, is your organizational culture rejecting the very solutions that could save it? Are your own bumper stickers and professional egos standing in the way of your next big breakthrough? Keep questioning how you solve problems, and hey, thanks for joining me on this explainer.